What's up, Menace soldiers under the Alliance? Welcome back to the video. So I just got done watching the Han Solo film, and honestly, right off the bat, I liked it. I'm actually surprised how much I liked it. I actually was one of those people who went into the movie expecting it to just be subpar, something like Rogue One kind of, but I was actually blown away by how much I enjoyed this film. I thought I was going to be really mad that they screwed up Han Solo, or they screwed up Lando, or they just screwed up I guess you can screw up Chewbacca too, maybe? I don't even know. But honestly, I was very happy with this film, and there were a few things that I wasn't too keen on, but I'll get into that further in the video. Now, before I go any further, I just wanted to state that this will be a spoiler review. I don't really do spoiler-free reviews, mostly because I just don't feel like it, and I just got done with the movie, like I said, like less than maybe 10 minutes ago, so I have it all fresh in my mind. I just want to go down my early opinions on this, and next week when I actually do my Star Wars movie ranked videos, you guys can see my actual true opinion as it goes on, but for right now, I am pleasantly surprised, and I want to actually label some of the pros I have with this film. First off, let's talk about Han Solo himself, the main character. I think he did a pretty good job of being Han Solo, but also being himself. For although I knew it wasn't Harrison Ford, because, I mean, no one can really be Harrison Ford except for Harrison Ford. However, I do think that he did a pretty good job of making the role his own. I can tell that this is a younger Han Solo, and because of that, I think I'm more accepting of him not being so Han Solo like we know from the original trilogy. And although I acknowledge the fact that he isn't the same character we know from A New Hope, like I said, this is like maybe 5 or 6 years before that. But like I said, he has plenty of time to kind of develop into more of an anti-hero character. So for right now, I do like the Han they have, and I think he did a pretty good job. Netwife, however, she told me herself that she actually didn't like him as much, and then I had another friend who was kind of on the fence. So while I liked him, there were some points that I do think maybe could have been improved on, but overall I think he did a pretty good job of portraying Han Solo, aka Harrison Ford in space. Let's talk about some of the supporting characters. We have Chewbacca. He did a pretty good job just, you know, doing the, you know, so there's that. We got Kira, or some people call her Khaleesi or Daenerys from Game of Thrones. I think she did a really good job being that extra character to kind of be like his motivation. I actually thought they were going to kill her off, but something else happened. I'm gonna go over the story after I'm done with the characters, kind of going over them, but I'll explain that then. So I said the actor who was doing Han Solo for this film, he did his own kind of Han Solo. I would definitely say that Lando Calrissian in this is definitely Lando Calrissian, or at least a younger version of him, so that's pretty cool. There were a couple other supporting characters that were introduced, and although they lasted for maybe like 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the film, they definitely got their point across, and I was able to understand their characters. In fact, I think the characters that, although I don't know their names, I think that they're better developed than the characters in Rogue One, and we had an entire movie to worry about them before those guys died. So, spoiler alert for that, by the way. Yeah. But I think for what they were, they did a pretty good job. Another character I definitely want to talk about is Tobias. I think that he was a super interesting character. There's something about him that just really made me want to see more of him. And although he was a good character in my opinion, I think that he also served as more of a mirroring to Han Solo, or perhaps something that Han Solo would eventually foreshadow to his future, what Han Solo would eventually become. And you can definitely see that, especially when you consider Han Solo in Episode 7. Han and Tobias are very similar characters when Han gets older, and I think that just kind of shows the mirroring of just how much Han is going to develop and become that character. Now, of course, Tobias is more of a villain, and Han Solo becomes more of a hero later on, but for what we know right now, it definitely looks like it's kind of a mirror in the character, and I think it's really cool. Now that we covered the characters, let me kind of go into the story. As far as the story goes, it's good. I think it's a pretty fun story. I don't think it's completely great, but I think it is definitely much better than I was expecting, and I'm happy for that at least. Like I stated earlier, I'm not one of those people who went into this film expecting it to fail or wanting it to fail. I'm more one of those people who went into this film wanting it to succeed, but expecting the worst. And the thing is, it actually was pretty chill, and it brought my hype up. You know, with The Last Jedi, I went into The Last Jedi expecting it to be the best Star Wars movie out of them all, and it's just kind of mediocre after some time. So when I came out of The Last Jedi, I didn't exactly know how to feel, but when I came out of the Solo film, I'm actually much more excited about it and much more wanting to see more, which is weird. With The Last Jedi, I was kind of more like, you know, I do want to see more, of course, but I'm kind of like, I'm not as excited as I was after Episode 7. You know, The Force Awakens had its flaws, but I was so excited to see Episode 8 because Episode 8 would definitely just fix all the flaws. But instead, Episode 8 kind of just made more flaws, and you know, that's kind of a problem. But I think overall, Solo just has much more of a fun story. Now, with that side note out of the way, let's get to the story. I like the relationship between Han and Qi'ra. I think it was a pretty chill one. You can definitely tell that when they meet up later, that some stuff has definitely gone on and she's not the same girl that he left on Corellia. So that was pretty cool. I thought the whole Chewbacca and Han Solo scene was really interesting too. When he initially got thrown into the pit, I was like, well, what is he gonna fight in this pit? Like, what's gonna happen? And then when I heard the noises, I'm like, this is reminiscent. It's not a Wookiee call, you know what I mean? But it's a growl of something that I heard that was similar. I'm like, this is Chewbacca. This is how Chewbacca and Han met. I think it was a really fun scene. And that's probably something that this movie does better than any of the Star Wars movies so far. It really makes Chewbacca more of a character. Before, Chewbacca was more of a, you know, sidekick, a background character. But in this film, Chewbacca actually becomes one of the main characters. And I like that. I'm actually happy to see that. Although he didn't really say much or really do much besides, you know, helping Han here and there and becoming his co-pilot halfway through the film. But when it comes down to it, I'm definitely a massive fan of Chewie kind of being more of a main character, and I like that, so let's see more of that in the future. An interesting thing I noticed about this film is that it kind of starts out as more of a redemption film, and then turns into a heist film, and then turns into a spaghetti western film. And I think that's really cool. Especially at the end of the third act, there's definitely reminiscence of like the good, the bad, the ugly, and I really like that. I think that's perfect for Han Solo's character. And of course, another part that I thought was extremely interesting and I was so excited to see because I didn't think that Disney would actually have the mouse balls, I guess, to really bring this guy back into the canon. You know, there was always a Darth Maul in the Rebels and the Clone Wars TV show, and he was kind of held back in the lore. But now, he's actually part of the movie canon again, and I think that is brilliant. I'm so happy that Disney did this because this shows that they actually kind of really aren't afraid to embrace things from the prequels, and that's a good thing. Because although the prequels get a bad rep from a lot of people, there's a lot of good things from the prequels that should be cherished and used, and then of course Disney can capitalize on that. So I think it was really cool to see Darth Maul included in this film. Even if it was a brief cameo and he used a lightsaber for no reason, I think it was really cool to see him because I was caught completely off guard. But I think it was really cool to see Darth Maul come back in the spin-off films, and I can't wait to see more of him. I really hope they kind of embrace that more, like what they did in the cartoon. So I definitely want to see that in the movie. Now with that said, although it is cool to see Darth Maul, and the fact that he pulled his lightsaber out was completely just for fan service, it was still really cool, I loved it, I mean. But it's the same thing with Darth Vader in Rogue One. He didn't have to show up, but they threw him in there for fan service, and it worked out anyways, so whatever, you know. The problem that's gonna happen with that is that all the Star Wars fans and all the Star Wars nerds already know that Darth Maul is alive in the canon during this time. Now all the plain moviegoers, the guys who only saw the real movies, like, you know, episodes 1 through 8, and Rogue One or whatever, if you only pay attention to the movies, you're gonna be like, wait, did that dude die in episode 1? Why is he back? You know, so I can kind of see a problem with that, and hopefully that a future movie, I heard a Boba Fett movie might be coming along, and if Boba Fett is in it, he's gonna be in the crime syndicate, and at this time, Darth Maul is in charge of the entire crime syndicate. So maybe somewhere there can be a link there, maybe we can see Darth Maul and Boba Fett fight next to each other. I don't know, I think that sounds awesome, I would love that, but I guess only time will tell. Now with all those pros put out there, I have to label my cons. Some of my cons pretty much come down to there's a lot of fan service in this movie, kind of overdid it just a little bit, you know, just a teeny bit, just a little teeny bit. They definitely put on their fan service hats for this one, and you can tell, a couple different spots here and there, especially the Han Solo name, although I appreciated him kind of becoming Han Solo, and his last name is actually more of a reason because someone was just like, whatever, you're Han Solo now because you're alone, you know? I did appreciate that in a way because now his name is less, you know, on the dot. But still, it was that, you know, it was that. And like I mentioned, although Darth Maul wielding his lightsaber was pointless, it was pure fan service. We know that. It was still pretty chill. So I guess I can't complain much about that. Now as far as in-canon stuff, I think that they kind of went a little bit overboard with that as well. There's a lot of references to things that only the fans would know, and I feel like some of the stuff should be kind of elaborated on more. Not just for me, because although I knew a lot of the references, there were some references that I didn't even know, and I'm a Star Wars YouTuber, and it didn't land, especially when they use references from like really massive fans of Star Wars who know everything about the lore, and they use it in a joke. So although it could be considered a funny joke if you looked it up later, if you don't know what this person is talking about, it's not funny, and it doesn't land. And I don't like that they did that like maybe 2 or 3 times. And although if I was a massive lore fan of Star Wars and I knew the joke, I don't even know if it was funny. And I know part of making a Star Wars movie, or pretty much any franchise, is you have to not only appease the fans, but you also have to appease the wide audience of people who just kind of watch the movies and don't really go further into the story. And I feel like they kind of dip their feet a little too deep into the Star Wars fandom, a little bit here and there. So I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion, but some stuff just didn't land very well for me. Another con I have to say, the whole space squid thing, that was completely unnecessary. It's not that big of a deal, and I think it's pretty interesting that just like a massive squid just hanging out in space. It's a cool concept, but it's completely just not needed. And I definitely think that was kind of a drawback of the film. They could have definitely had something different. Maybe the Imperials were actually like right on their tail, about to blow them up, and then Han shot out of there. But instead it was like a massive squid. I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I thought it was cool, don't get me wrong, but it didn't work for me. Now with that said, I have to state this, I think this film was overall a success. And that's definitely a good thing considering the situation going on between Disney and the Star Wars fans right now. They're not exactly on the same team, I guess you could say that. I mean, this film had a lot to live up to in a way, you know, because if you think about it, The Last Jedi was mostly just disliked by many of the Star Wars fans. So this movie really had to kind of draw the fans back and make them kind of more happy. And I think overall it did that for me. I don't know if I can say that about all Star Wars fans, but as far as I'm concerned, I was a little sketchy about The Last Jedi, but now I'm more happy with this one. I definitely think that Disney is finally kind of getting to the spot it's supposed to be at. So it's not there yet, of course, it's got some time, but I do think that this movie is definitely a step in the right direction, so I can't wait to see what happens next. Now, speaking of what might happen next, I kind of want to go into what I think has happened with this film, because an interesting thing happened at the end of this film. It kind of ended in a way that a sequel could be made. Like almost we could have a Solo 2. And I think that's actually a really interesting concept. Like I mentioned earlier with Darth Maul, he's now the leader of Kira, and Kira's kind of the leader of her own crime syndicate, and there's other crime syndicates that are all teamed up that are under Darth Maul. So I think that'd be really interesting to see what's gonna happen from there. And I think that maybe Solo 2 could kind of explore that, or even the Boba Fett movie could explore that. So I'm actually pretty excited to see what happens next. Now with this film, although there are some smaller cons, like I mentioned with Darth Squid, or L3, you know, the sassy robot, he was kind of like a knockoff K2. She was kind of meh. There are a bunch of pros that go with this film, kind of like how Han and Chewie's relationship goes, or even Han and Lando's kind of like poker game they're playing. I think that was awesome to see, and I'm excited to see what happens next. Like I said, this is just kind of my first viewing reactions. Later on, this could change, and as we noticed from the previous Star Wars Disney films, where something is initially rated higher, it eventually gets kind of beaten up as time goes on. We've seen that with The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi. So we'll see how Solo fares. But I'm going to guess that Solo is going to be much more better off than the other ones. So hopefully. But that's it for this review. Please remember to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more Star Wars content. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.